Hey guys, Aaron Camp here, director at Small Voice Films. Thanks for stopping by and checking out part 2 of editing a micro-budget feature film. As mentioned in the first video, I've been editing a feature film called Thorns and Thistles at the End of the World, which is my second feature film as a director, the fourth feature that I've edited. And in the first video, I just went through some tips on how to set up your edit as you're getting ready to embark on the overall edit of a film, how to set up a solid filing structure, creating individual scene sequences, synchronizing clips, all that kind of thing. What I'm going to do now is just get into a little bit more detail of cutting scenes together and the process I go through in sort of compiling the film. Last time I synchronized all my scenes together and I mentioned that I edit all the scenes individually. So as you can see here, I've got all my different scenes. And then once each scene is cut individually, I then compile it all together into my first draft edit or an assemble edit. So, and that's what we see here. Got lots of, things on the timeline here. That's the entire film edited as a first draft. Individually, when it comes to editing a scene, once I've got all the footage in that scene sequence all synced up, I have my marked up script lined with all my shots ready to go. I have continuity notes on standby. So when it comes time to cut this scene, it's all there ready to go. What I do first is I'm going to reacquaint myself with that scene in the script and probably the scenes either side of it, just so I know how that scene is going to flow in the context of the script. And then I'm just basically going to come here and I'm going to watch every shot as it happens. Generally the last take of each shot, and then I'm going to label that as a different color. So you can see here, bam, I've labeled that cerulean, I think it is. Yep. And I'm going to go through the shots for this scene, do all my selects, label them as that, and then I bring them down to the start of this timeline, which is where I'm going to cut it together. So as you can see, I've cut together this scene. It's only 3 shots that we've got here. It's basically husband and wife, they're heading out somewhere, she's washing up a mug, and then he's going to write a note and leave it on the fridge, and they head out. Once that's edited, I do that for every scene in order, and then I just add it to my overall timeline. And then that gives me my full assemble edit of the film. As I go through each scene as well, so I'll edit scene 1 first, I'll label it a specific color. Scene 2, I'll label it a different color. Scene 3, a different color. So that way, as I look at it, when I come to doing my draft edit, I know where the scenes end. I'm like, oh, I want to see how scene 1 flows into scene 2, and then I can, fine tune those transitions between scenes. Gives me a quick visual reference of where the scenes start and finish. Also, in this case, with this film, there's quite a few flashbacks in this film. So I've labeled all of the flashbacks brown. So that way, I know that that's a flashback sequence. I'm going to color those sequences differently once we come to color grading and things as well. So all the flashbacks are brown. Now, sometimes as you're editing a scene, you'll realize that you don't necessarily need to have all the information that you've shot in that scene. Sometimes you'll pick this up straight away as you're editing that first assemble edit. So for example, scene 86. It's a flashback scene. It's about our main character getting a cup of tea for his wife. And so the shot starts and he turns the kettle on, he goes over, grabs the tea bags, comes, puts them in, waits for the kettle to boil, and then leaves the scene. So it's quite a lengthy process of him turning the kettle on, walking over, getting the cups of the tea bags, putting them in the cup, waiting for the kettle to boil. So when it actually came time to do this for the assemble edit, I just got rid of the whole bit of him turning the kettle on, going over, getting the cup of tea. It was just taking too much time. It's at a point in the story where we're nearing the end of the film and we kind of want to get it to move on a bit. So instead of being a 30, 40-second shot of him turning the kettle on, going over, blah, 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 it ends up being, for the assemble edit, 17 and a half or 17 3/4 second scene of kettle just finishes, he starts pouring, puts that back and takes the cups of tea. I do that as the assemble edit, and I realise that this may even get shorter when we come to doing future drafts, but I've already cut it down quite significantly. Now if I jump over back to scene 79 here, we've got, what's this, a 54-second scene. Again, at 79, we're at a point in the story where we want to move on a little bit in the script. So I've gone through a couple of draft edits of the film, and now in the third draft of the script, that's 10:06 there, this scene, it's gone down from 54 seconds, it's now a 12-second scene. Okay, so as I've watched it back, I've realised, you know what, we don't need to see the female character washing up the mug. We don't even need to see her in this scene at all. The important bit about this scene is that he writes a note and he puts it on the fridge. Sometimes less is more, and it's about re-watching the film and then working out what are the important things that we're saying in this shot. Even though that shot that we did in scene 79, it took us about, I don't know, 7 or 8 takes to get this shot done how we were happy with it. Even though I really like the shot and how it goes across here and she's there and the reflections on the side there. I love the composition of it. It's just not needed. So I've cut that out of the film. And as you can see, I've got it down to 86.5 minutes now, the draft of the film. I have another scene here, scene 84, which is a single shot scene of our lead character and one of his work colleagues. Kind of became, when I watched the film back after I did the assemble edit and I watched it all together, it's a redundant scene, so I've cut that scene entirely. This is another scene here, scene 75, where it took us around about, I think, what, we did 19 takes, did we? Yeah, 19 takes of this shot to get it right. We had a bit of a camera move in there just to get the performances right and the camera move correct and everything. It took us 19 takes. So when it came down to it and I'm watching the film back, I realised that, you know what, that dialogue that's in that scene that we spent so much time trying to perfect on the day, it's really not needed, because as we watch the film, we understand what's happening and we don't need that dialogue spoken. So even though I want the scene there, I'm just going to have music over it. So it's gone from 16 seconds down to 4 seconds and we've got rid of the dialogue entirely. Often you'll find that you'll construct scenes in your film and the scenes work great in and of themselves, but once you put them in the context of the whole story, there's certain things that you don't need to see and that are just redundant information that the audience is going to pick up and infer anyway. So, and that was certainly the case here. You shouldn't fall in love too much with your shots and keep them just because, hey, you know that it took you time on set to create that and you want to include it, or the actor's going to get disappointed because we're cutting out their dialogue. What you need to do is you need to serve the story, you need to read the script, make sure you've got the essential information is coming across on screen, and don't be afraid to just toss stuff out if it's not working. So that's basically how I go about cutting a scene together. Now, scenes aren't always that simple. There's a few scenes in this film that are quite lengthy and complex and took a little bit of time to cut together. Scene 33 is one of them, I believe. Yeah, so this is a 3-minute scene, lots of dialogue. So lots of different shots here that I had to go through, watching every performance, making sure that I'm getting exactly what I need from each actor in each shot. But the same process applies. Watch all the takes, do your selects, in this case I've labelled them yellow, and then cut it together. Once you've cut it together, you add it to your assemble edit. Once you've got your assemble edit complete, watch all that back, make some notes as you're watching it, then go through it and trim until you get it down a bit. And then, as I've said, I've gone through 2 drafts. I've got my 3rd draft here now. It's currently sitting at 86.5 minutes, so which is pretty close to where I wanted this film to sit. I don't really want it to be shorter than 80 minutes. Don't really want it to be too much longer than what it is now, so I think we're sitting pretty good. What I've done now is you get to a point in your edit where you need to get some external feedback. So that's the point that I'm at now, where I've sent this draft edit of the film out to a few people that I trust who understand that the sound design hasn't been done, the color grading hasn't been done, but they're going to watch the film back and they're going to give me feedback on the story. That's all I'm looking for at this point. I just want feedback on the story. Does it flow? Is it confusing at any point? Can you follow the story? Is it intriguing? Those kind of things. Do you feel that any scene's redundant? Were you unsure about what's happening at any point in time? That's the kind of feedback that I want at this point. I'm going to distance myself from the film for a few days, just so I'm not going to look at it, not going to touch it. Then I'm going to come back, I'm going to get all that feedback, I'm going to watch it again, and then work out that, you know what, maybe I should trim this here. This is slowing down a bit here. I'm going to trim that section. I reckon I could expand this section a little bit. I need a bit more information here. So maybe I'll expand a scene or just a couple of shots just to hold on a bit of information or something like that that people may be confused about. Maybe I'll reorder a couple of scenes. Oh, I think this should happen before this, or whatever the case may be. I've already got a few ideas in mind of what I can do, a couple of points that I might want to trim, a scene that I might want to flip with another scene, but I'm going to wait to get feedback from my colleagues and then we'll see what happens from there. You may notice on the timeline here from the assemble edit down to where I am now in the third draft, I have all this extra audio added. That's some temp music that I've added to the film to assist me in shaping the edit, just so I can get a feel for the kind of music that I want in the film, but also just to get a feel for how the scenes are flowing together. And that often will enable you to tighten things up and get it a bit snappier as well. Obviously, when I send this on to the composer, while I might send the temp music to the composer to listen to so he can get an understanding of the kind of feel that I'm going for, I'm going to send him a version of the film, obviously without that music in it, so he can create his own composition and get his own beats of where he feels things are happening, and we'll refine it from there. So I'm now at a point where I've gone through the film a few times, I've condensed things down a bit, we're at 86.5 minutes, I've scenes that I've been mulling over in my mind, maybe slept on it overnight and worked out, I've tightened things, shortened things. Now we're just waiting on feedback from some trusted colleagues who are going to review the film for me, just so I can make sure the film makes sense. There's nothing confusing about any scenes. If they feel that it could be tightened up or, you know, refined further, we'll do that. I'm going to take a break from the film for a few days, come back, watch it with fresh eyes, and then work out where things might need a little bit more trimming and shaping done. And then after that, it's on to sound design, color grading, and music composition. So there you go. I hope you found that informative and it's given you a little bit of insight into how I go about editing scenes and constructing the film. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to stay up to date with any future videos we put together.